Welcome back, spinal injury warriors. And first, I'll start with a bit of an apology. I'd a load of footage shot for this video, which I just wasn't happy with. I was going into far too much detail, and to be absolutely honest, I was boring myself. So I just thought I'd shoot a little video just to tell you how it is. This is a subject which effectively changed my life overnight on one day in August 2022. I went into surgery for a fusion and a decompression on my spine. I've gone through the details of which in previous videos. I came out of this first surgery paralysed. Now, we don't exactly know what happened. There were a couple of theories that were mooted at the time. The first theory being that my spinal cord suffered what's called a reperfusion event. Reperfusion is something similar to what happens when somebody might have a stroke. Following a period of time where cells have had ischemia, which is a shortage of oxygen to them, and when they suddenly get the blood supply back and the oxygen going back into the cells can actually damage the cells and the organs. And it's kind of what happened, or what they think happened, to my spinal cord following the operation. And the surgeon at the time was kind of indicating that it might have been the anaesthetic that caused it. I was underneath anaesthetic for 10 hours for the first operation. So that was theory number one, a reperfusion. Theory number two was quite simply, they put me on an operating table on my front for 10 hours. And in the previous 6 months, I've not been able to lie on my front for any period of time, just because the pain was so great. So I knew there was some sort of issue going on with my spine. And here I was asleep on an operating table for 10 hours placed on my front. So this second theory was more about pressure from being what they call prone on your front for so long actually caused a bruising event on my spinal cord. So there were two theories, and we can get into the detail of that on future videos. But I woke up because of this paralysed, which was a shock, to say the least. What was so scary at the time was the fact that this fusion operation was supposed to be the more straightforward one of the two operations that I was going to have to go through. And the second operation, this carried a 20% chance of paralysing me. So coming out of the first operation, I was already paralysed. I thought, this doesn't bode too well. And it took several days to kind of come to terms with the fact that I'd lost the use of my legs. Now, when I initially woke up, both of my legs were paralysed and I couldn't feel anything from my waist down. I was under morphine at the time, so I was pretty much away with the fairies and quite euphoric that I'd woken up at all. After a very short period of time, I started to get movement back in my left leg, although the sensation was a little bit crazy. But for the following week or two, I had absolutely no movement and sensation in my right leg, and I was bedridden for that period of time. So this is what they did to me on that first operation. This was a fusion between T10 and T12 vertebra, and you can clearly see these titanium screws, one going through thoracic 10, the other one going through thoracic 12 vertebra, and thoracic 11 vertebra is in the middle, and then those are all fused together with a titanium rod. So essentially between T10 and T12 is now one single vertebra. And at the same time, they also removed some bone from the rear of my spine, which you can't actually see in this shot, to allow the spinal cord more room. So this is the the shot of the metalwork. Sorry for the quality. This was actually taken with an iPhone off a picture from the registrar's laptop, and it's not all that clear. The problem disc that I had was between T10 and T11. It's here. It's not actually shown very clearly on this particular section. If I show you another picture which will illustrate the damage, here's an MRI view of the same area shortly after the operation. You can faintly see the titanium screws through my thoracic vertebra 11. There's one screw there. And T12, that's the other titanium screw there, with T11 in between. The offending disc, which at this stage they hadn't removed, and this is the disc bulge, the calcified disc bulge, which was compressing my spinal cord, and you can quite clearly see the compression. Now, the damage that was caused in the first operation that caused the paralysis is actually signified by this whitening to the spinal cord in this area here. So this was either the reperfusion event or quite simply bruising to the spinal cord. And at this stage, straight after the operation, we didn't know whether this was temporary or whether it was permanent. I spent the night of the operation trying to persuade my right leg to work. My left leg had started working again, although the sensation was totally bonkers. But I got locked in this cycle for hour after hour, checking that my left leg was still working, that something horrible hadn't happened to that one as well. And then secondly, using my left leg to try and persuade my right leg or my right foot to work, and it just wasn't happening. And I got locked in this kind of obsessional cycle all night of the first night after the operation. The following morning, the surgeon came to see me, and he was visibly stressed. This wasn't something that was in the plan, and they didn't really have the answers at the time. But the real low point was when he mentioned, of course, we never really wanted to do this operation, and it was just a bombshell. And yeah, my world collapsed at that point. At least that's how I felt at the time, because quite clearly I was pretty emotional, and at that point I was just thinking, well, if I've got one good working leg and my other one is the only thing that's stopping me from standing or walking up, then what's the point in having that extra limb? It was thoughts like that were going into my head at that moment in time. It was quite shocking when I think back on it now. So this was a low. I'm in bed, bedridden, and my sphere of influence is as wide as I can stretch my arms because I couldn't move. And I was like that for the first week to 10 days. The surgeons decided to delay the second operation for fear of going in and doing any more damage to the spinal cord, and they really wanted to understand whether I was going to get any recovery to the spinal cord. And in that same time, they consulted with their peers, both in the UK and overseas, to seek guidance as to what the best course of action would be, whether they go straight in, get the disc out, take the pressure off the spinal cord immediately, or they wait a period of time, and they were talking kind of 4, 5, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months before going back in and give the spinal cord a chance to recover. And during that time, I was without the use of my right leg, and my sensation in my lower half was patchy, to say the best. I'm going to leave this video here, and I'm sorry it's at a little bit of a low point, but this is really the point at which adventures with a spinal cord injury really do begin. So the rest of the videos that I post up are more about recovery and rehabilitation and what's possible with a spinal cord injury and what happened to me from this point on. If you like this video, then please click below the like button, and please do subscribe, because you'll then get the notification for when the next videos are going up. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one.